Welcome to the Revolution Church podcast.
Traffic was really bad getting to church this morning, even though I live here. For all the listeners, I'm holding up a McDonald's coffee. Iced coffee. I don't want to sound more manly for the podcast listeners. Well, welcome. Hey guys, I was sick last week. And honestly, I've been sick this week. I thought I was going to get better. And strangely enough, I ended up getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And it's not COVID, so that's good. And my kids are out of the country with their mom on a big trip to see their grandparents, which I'm really excited for them. I'm gonna miss them a lot. But I wanted to be with them a couple days before they left. And so I had them, and I was sick, and it's been a lot. I'm still kind of sick. I'm supposed to go out of town tomorrow for work. Hopefully that'll be okay. Hopefully I'll feel better. I dropped the kids off yesterday at the airport with their mom, and rested most of the day, and I'm going to try to rest mostly today, so hopefully I'll be fine for Los Angeles, California, to go work on the dock. Got a lot of cool people we're interviewing this week. I'm really excited about this documentary, folks. I think it's going to be really, really good. But yeah, so let's see. Well, great part about being sick was being in bed, and often that's where I think about my talks. And I was thinking about my talks. And what cool was this morning was when I was in line, just a few minutes ago, I was in line at McDonald's because I was like, I just need to get some coffee, some caffeine in me to kind of get moving. Was a couple things. But one of the things is, you know, how we talk about grace as anarchy. And like, it's funny, like if you would think of like Grace as a superhero, the anarchy symbol on his chest or her chest, whatever. Like, well, who would be the arch enemy of grace? And I think legalism would be that. And then I started thinking like, well, you know, in some ways legalism is anarchy as well, as much as I would like to not admit it. Even though legalism, you would think, well, that shouldn't be because it creates law. But in some ways, though, it's amazing how the people who decide to use laws and rules and really like I guess asterisk would be the right word, you know, putting an asterisk next to grace instead of an anarchy symbol in the middle. But how many people are willing to bring legalism into their own system, even in systems of grace, you know, and how the us and them thing really it's so funny. So I found this, I got this, you know, you get the Facebook memories, and I got this Facebook memory from like a few years back, and it was me quoting the prayer of the Pharisee. And we're going to read that one today, I think. We are going to read that one today. But the Pharisee thanking, you know, God, all the things that he's not, you know, and at the end I put in televangelist, you know. And I think there must have been at the time a lot of people were attacking my dad, so I said, and thank God I'm not like that televangelist. And so I put up some more like, I ended, and I said, well, thank God I'm not like that LGBTQ person, or thank God I'm not like that podcaster, or thank God I'm not like that straight white cis male, or thank God I'm not like that liberal, or thank God I'm not like that conservative, and you know. And it's funny because like I thought a lot of people get mad, and really not a lot of people commented on it. Some people hearted it. I think the one that got the least hearts was the straight white cis male. But I just thought it was interesting, because you kind of put in everybody's enemies in there. Like, because we all have a person that we're grateful that we're not like, and, or that we're grateful that we're not. And somehow maybe even feel some sort of self righteousness about it. And ironically, they probably feel the same way about us and how they're not like us. So, there goes the separation, the division, the divided community of humanity. And that's not what we're called to do. Someone also, I follow this ELCA Facebook page, and someone posted this tweet that somebody put up, and that said, there are no non-Christians who believe that Christians are known by their love. And I agreed with that. But what made me hit me really tough and really hit me with that was the realization is that's what Jesus said, that, I want you to love each other at the Last Supper. He goes, I want you guys to love each other. And because you'll be known they will know you belong to me for your love for one another. And so the very fact that Christianity is not a faith or a religion that is known by people for those people who love one another, and that we love one another, and that a religion of love or the love for one another, means we have failed. That Christianity has failed. It's like, oh yeah, well, you love the poor and you love the homeless, but what happens when they get money and they get back on their feet? Do you still love them? You know what I mean? It's like, are you doing things out of obligation, or do you love people, or do you love people in a situation? And that's, a lot of questions there. It's like with conservatives, like, okay, well, you're pro-life, but what do you care about the kids after they're born? Like most of the places that have some of the harshest abortion laws also have laws that don't have any laws in place that help take care of for child care and things like that, and health care and issues like that parents desperately need when they have young children. So it makes no sense, that we live in a world where people say they're pro-life, but they don't care about the person's life. They just care that they're born. So yeah, but we all have contradictions, but the point is like, we failed. Christianity has failed. And that's what I'm here to say. Christianity, for what Jesus said we should be known for, that they will know you for your love for one another, we have not fulfilled that. And what is it? 1 John, it says, God is love. And so Jesus says they'll know you by your love for one another. And we are not known for that. We are known by what we stand against, what politicians we support mostly. If you're a conservative Christian or you're left Christian, it honestly seems like you have idols and that your gods are politicians. I think people have taken people's work, like Dr. King's work, and taken it to such an extent where they have almost left Jesus out of the whole thing. Like, I think King had a good balance, because I think King knew, like, I have to work with conservatives, I have to work with liberals, I got to work with both people to change these laws and make these things happen. But now a lot of social justice people are like, well, I only work with liberals because these conservatives are evil, blah, blah, blah. And so we start making these judgment calls on all these different types of people. And then I think it also boils down to the point where I think there's no God in it anymore, that we have decided that, well, we just trust in the politicians. We just trust in these people, and these people are the answer. God's not the answer. Loving your enemies not the answer. Loving others isn't really the answer. Putting your faith in politicians is the answer. And so what I see when I look at Christianity, often, mostly when I see what I see online, to be honest with you, as I see mostly people whose faiths are in politicians. And I think politicians are great people to help and talk to and help change things. But by putting faith in politics and politicians, we miss the boat there. We miss the bigger picture. You know, we are called to be even beyond that. You know, even if there's unjust laws, we are called to rebel against those unjust laws, of course. You know, we're called to love people where they're at, you know, and that's what was happening when it's in biblical, when the Bible was being written and when these stories were being told, you know, they were living in occupied territory, you know, and we forget about that. And so they didn't really have the choice to find saviors in their politicians. So I think in some ways we've taken this whole thing of putting our faith in politics. It's like, you know, it's like, do you really want your God to be Donald Trump or, you know, our president now? You know, it's like Joe Biden. I mean, do you want Biden and Trump to be your idols? I mean, neither one of those guys seem like anybody. I would not want my kids to grow up to be like either one of those people. And it's funny on my Facebook, I see all these people who are like, oh, you've got to pray for Donald Trump. He's going through the worst thing he's ever been through. And I'm like, do you guys not see who these human beings are? Like the fruits of their work, the fruits of the Spirit, like the fruits of what their work produces of, like, you know, not only did Donald have kids in cages, but Joe Biden helped build those cages, got the kids in there, and they're still there, but we don't care about it as much anymore because they changed the name of cages to other things. You know, it's like we just willfully become ignorant because our idol is the one who's in front, you know, and so we ignore the bad things when our idol's in front because we go, well, at least our idol is there. You know, I mean, it's this basic and this bad how quickly we get away from this stuff. And then so, you know, well, we don't want to demonize our idol, so we won't point out the bad things that our idol does. And that's called hypocrisy. And we live in a very hypocritical world. We live in a very hypocritical world. And we're all hypocrites. And it's time to realize that. You know, so wake up, Democrats, you're hypocrites. Wake up, Republicans, you're hypocrites. You're all a bunch of goddamn hypocrites, and it's time to wake up and follow Christ and not follow these parties. These parties can be part of your life, but it's not the end all. And you know what? What party you vote for doesn't base on what you believe about if you believe in Jesus or not. Boom, there you go. So neither one of you can sit around and go like, you're not a real Christian if you support this person. You're not a real Christian. How if you can both do it? And I'm like, I was really surprised that the liberals did it after the conservatives did it, because I was like, it didn't work when the conservatives said it, and now you guys are saying it? It's like, we just play these dumb situations over and over again, and it's like, well, you can't have God if you don't fight for the real politician. So basically we're saying, like, if you'd like to accept Jesus into your heart, you must first pick the correct politician. So which politician will you pick? Will you pick the right or the left politician? And then we will find out if you are able to be a real Christian or not, and what tribe you can spend in, and what tribe's God you will follow. You know? It's bullshit. It's all capitalism. Neither, you know, we're not getting health care. We're not being taken care of. You know, it's rich and poor, and the richer are getting smaller groups, and the poor are getting bigger groups, and that's how it's separated, folks. I mean, just, you know, step into reality for a second and embrace that and realize, okay, well, then why is there a reason that we have Christianity? Because Christianity is beyond politics. Politics are important, but we don't realize that politics play us off against each other. You know, they'll find a small group of people and say, well, we'll give a little bit here. And so then, you know, you have a small group of people going, well, Jay, you can't talk about Democrats because look what they've done for my community. I'm going like, yeah, but I live in a bigger community of poor people, and we're all poor, and they don't care about us. But they'll give you little crumbs from the table in order for you to be loyal to them. And we have to wake up to that and go like, even if they're giving me crumbs from the table, who is going hungry? Who is starving? I mean, these are situations and ideas of things that we've really got to look at. And it's really sad to me to see how many people just, you know, post all this crap about these politicians and act like they're the saviors of the world. No, they're people who could maybe help us get policies passed to help other people, but they're also people who are getting policies passed to make their wallets bigger. Conservative and Democrats, both of them. They're both greedy people. There's not a lot of good people in politics right now. So there you go. Now, Jay, now that I've taken everyone's hope away and dealt with the reality, well, and the reason I hope I say this stuff is because I really do want people from different groups to talk. Like, rather than sitting around and defending your political back, why not just sit? Why don't we just, can't we just sit at a table and see, like, well, let's see who's got the worst candidates. Let's see who's got, which one of yours is doing insider trading? Who's doing the most insider trading? Or, who's selling the most missiles to people? Because you know what missiles are for? They're for killing people. And what does the Bible say about killing? And what does the Bible say about doing to our enemies? Maybe we could say who's the most unbiblical group and not do it in a way where we're trying to shame the other part, where we're trying to win the most unbiblical political group. The reason I say this is so we, as human beings, don't allow these to keep us divided, that we can actually come together as a community and see things differently, and have these conversations and say, well, why do you think everybody should have health care? Okay, why do you think abortion should be legal? Is there a way that we can talk about this? Is there a way that we can go beyond this? And how can we do this? But if they keep us separated and keep us arguing at each other, we will never bind together. But we're stronger together, and they know that, and that's why they keep us divided. And the weird thing is they're keeping us divided for not much of a difference. Some of you will say, well, no, I see a big difference with this party and with that party. And I go, yeah, but that's because often they're manipulating us with just small things here and there. And I understand that we've gotten such little bit of crumbs that any crumbs we get, it's like we're starving. So yeah, I'm going to be loyal to the person who gives me the crumbs. But I don't want to live in a world, in a country where we're dependent on crumbs, and our loyalty is based on the little crumbs we get from the table. I want to live in a world where we are making big changes for everybody, and that as humans we're working together, So maybe it's that, if we work together as humans and we're stronger together, well, we see somebody sick, well, we help them go to the doctor and pay their bill if we have enough money to do it, because obviously the country doesn't care, or you offer to be there for them, feed each other, Anyway, I know it sounds like some crazy wishful thinking, but I just want to call out that I don't think a lot of us are really following Christianity anymore, and that's okay. You don't have to. I get given up on it, but pretending like your politics and your Christianity are like hand in hand, As Christians, we should just be manipulating politics to help the poor, really, to help the marginalized, and but we don't really care about the other at night, do we? So in Luke, I think it's Luke. Is it Luke? Let me see. I thought it was 2. Or is it Mark? Hold on. Now I'm trying to talk off of top of my head. Never trust a dyslexic's memory verses. This is why my camp team always lost. I never could remember where anything was. Yeah, here it is. Mark 2:17. I had it Luke. I don't know why. Changed it. Here we go. Mark, let's start with 15. Well, let's start with 13. Mark 2:13. Jesus went out again beside the sea. The whole crowd gathered around him, and he taught them. As he was walking along, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at his tax collection booth. And he said to him, follow me. So he looks at Levi, who becomes Matthew, and says, follow me, follow me. And he got up and he followed him. And as he sat at dinner at Levi's house, many tax collectors and sinners were also sitting with Jesus and his disciples. For there were many who followed him. Did you hear that? Many tax collectors and sinners were also sitting with Jesus and his disciples. For there were many who followed him. When the scribes of the Pharisees saw that he was eating with sinners and tax collectors, they said to his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? When Jesus heard this, he said to them, those who are well have no need of a physician, and those who are sick I've come to call not the righteous, but sinners. Now, what I really like is how the New Living says that I've come to call sinners, not those who think they're good enough. And I like the idea of how they were able to capture that as how they think they're good enough. And what this starts here is, one, you see Jesus reaching out to someone who's like literally in the midst of tax collection, literally in the midst of betraying his community. It's like you have a ELCA pastor show up and one morning to preach, and he's wearing a MAGA hat. And then Jesus walks up and goes, "You're my guy." What? Everybody's mind's blown, And so Jesus goes up to this tax collector, and most people wouldn't even look a tax collector in the eye, because tax collectors were shifty people who would take more than taxes and keep that for themselves. And this is what's such a radical story about this. I mean, we just don't get it. Like, people are like, "Oh, you just can't be a sinner." I found this quote who was it from? I think it was Kant, who said, I don't just need grace for the past, I need grace for the future, and, I remember as a kid at the Assemblies of God, I grew up and I'm like, well, what if I'm cussing and the rapture happens, or, what if I'm doing something bad and the rapture happens? Everybody's like, oh, you're going to get left behind, And here is Matthew in the midst of tax collecting, the midst of like probably figuring out like who can I get extra money from and steal, and trying to stay alive, that people in his own community don't stab him or kill him, that zealots don't kill him for being a traitor to the Jewish community, because he's working with the government. And today's, for today, liberals, Jesus would have been a police officer maybe for some of you liberal folks. And Jesus comes and goes, oh, come follow me. And you'd be like, why would you just call a cop? For your conservative folks, maybe he would be in the midst of protesting, and he was, Black Lives Matters or an anarchist or something, and Jesus goes, come follow me, and you're like, oh, why did he do that? So Jesus calls this person in the midst of all these things that people don't like. And I'm guessing the government probably didn't even respect these guys, but needed to use these guys so they could have new tax. But I'm guessing they didn't even respect them, because they were obviously trying to overthrow their whole world and turn them against each other, and putting him in that position. So you got this guy in a complete shit position in life, Or here's one we can all agree with. Jesus walks into the DMV, to the person at the DMV, and says, come, be my disciple. And we're all going, what? So there you go. And then Jesus says, matter of fact, let's go to your house and have dinner, which for Jewish tradition is that you're building a covenant with. It was a covenant to share a meal together. It was a big deal. And so Jesus goes, let's go to your house and have dinner. And so that happens. And it's not just him, but he's got other friends who are not got all their shit together, and they're called notorious sinners, which I would like to be a part of that crew. And but not in like the wink, like Calvinist way, like, oh, I'm so bad, that's why I need grace, that's why I'm predestined for heaven. Not in that kind of winky way, but in the kind of like, just like, whatever, I'm just shit, and it's okay. so here Jesus is hanging out with all these people, having a meal, they're all laying back. And then the Pharisees, the teachers of religious law, why is he eating with such scum? And Jesus talks to them. But today, Jesus isn't the focus on this. It's really the Pharisees. And so what's going on with the Pharisees here is they're always focused on what the other is doing. They're literally, in ways, they are literally kind of like the social media of their time. You know, they're the religious leaders. They're keeping an eye on, they're policing everybody. And they're policing, and they're almost like, you know, progressives in some ways, is that they're policing to see who are you hanging out with and who are you talking to, and are you talking to the right group of people, or are you talking to the wrong group of people. So, you know, we you know, we've got this, like, who should we cancel? Like, cancel, you know, we got to cancel this guy Jesus. You know, look who he's hanging out with the wrong group of people. He's not hanging out with folks in our tribe, so we need to cancel him. Or, you know, or if you go back to the 80s, I remember my dad flew on a plane with the guy who ran Hustler, Larry Flint, and people wanted to cancel my dad because he was the conservatives. We've got to cancel Jim Baker because he's on the Hustler plane with that guy, and they're having a conversation. And I'm sure there's no good happening there. Anyway, it just sways and goes. Who decides to, you know? I just say get rid of cancel culture. But that's the thing. So they're coming in and they're being the morality police. The morality police covers everybody, I think. So they're being the morality police, and they're going like, oh, well, Jesus isn't supposed to eat with them. He's hanging out with them. You know, this is horrible. These are horrible people. You remember when everybody got upset because, oh gosh, what was her name? Was at the ball game with George W. Remember? Who was it? I think you guys got it all figured out, like from your talks. I don't even need to be here anymore. Ellen. So remember when Ellen that sat down next to George W. You know, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, Ellen! We got to cancel Ellen. She sat down next to George W. Bush." You know, like that's totally a Pharisee move. Like being shocked and angered and everything like that. You are totally Pharisaical at that point. Boom. There you go. You want to be a Pharisee? Boom. Oh, they're not supposed to hanging out with the wrong crowd. Oh, they shouldn't be. I mean, I don't agree with most of those people who are praying for Donald Trump. But like I've said this before, like if I got called and said, would you come pay for Donald Trump? I don't pray really, but if you'd want me to, sure. You know, I'll pray for anybody if they ask me to. You know, I'm not a big prayer, but if you ask me to, I'll be glad to. You know, and then, oh my God, how dare you touch that person? You know, it's tough. You know, it's complicated. And Jesus just wasn't doing that, but Jesus was actually building a covenant with these folks. So was Jesus winking at sin? You know, by sitting down with Pharisees or by sitting down with tax collectors and notorious sinners? Was he winking at sin? You know, I mean, good Lord, that's what they told me I've been doing most of my life. And in high school, that was my biggest fear. You know, Christians didn't want you hanging out with sinners. You know, and now I realize if Jesus would have been a high school student, he would have been with the bad kids, and then, you know, I wouldn't have known what to do. I would have been torn. Oh, why is Jesus eating with the bad kids? Why is Jesus? Those are notorious sinners. Those guys are drunkards and party animals. Anyway, I digress. Matthew 23. Well, hello. Hey, Clint. How's Fort Mill treating you? So Matthew, I wonder if that's my friend Clint, who I got to hang out with recently. He's a very, very cool guy. If it is, if it's not, new Clint, I look forward to meeting you. Matthew 23. It's good to have a little coffee because I get so worked up that I forget to read this. Somebody just asked me what the overall message was, so I don't know if that was for me or for other people. I don't know. Maybe you have to stick to the end. Also, warning, I don't always land the plane or tie a bow on things. Sometimes you have to come up with the answer yourself. So you got to put on your listening ears and your watching glasses. Because I see speaking as a type of art as well. Matthew 23, 4. I'm definitely not a TED talker, if you know what I mean. Matthew 23, 4. I wish I could continue to see all your guys' stuff, but I just don't. I don't. I only see them out of context. I'm seeing things out of context. So I don't know if you're talking to each other or talking to me half the time. Did I say Matthew 23? I think I did. Matthew 23. Yes, there it is. This is the hard one. Matthew 23, talking about the Pharisees. 23, 4. They tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on the shoulders of others, but they themselves, talking about religious teachers, are unwilling to lift a finger to move them. They do all their deeds to be seen by others, for they mark their phylacteries broad and their fringes long. They love to have the place of honor at banquet and the best seats of the synagogue, and to be greeted with respect in the marketplace, to have people call them rabbi, but you are not to be called rabbi. Now, this is talking about Pharisees. Now, what is it saying about the Pharisees? They tie people up with heavy burdens, hard to bear. They don't help you, and they do it all in public. I mean, how is this not like Pharisees are like total social media people? Like they're influencers. I think the Pharisees are influencers because they're sitting around, and then they're political influencers of whatever your favorite party is. See what I did there? I don't have to pick one now. And they're saying, you know, making us do possible. What is it that I think it's Paul says at one point, he goes, you know, they cross the sea, you know, land and sea to convert you and turn you into twice the sons of hell that they are. Because it's easy to go and say, well, why do they hang out with those people? Or it's easy to go like, well, look at me, I have all my shit together. You need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, but you don't help. All you do is, what is it, Monday quarterbacking? Is that what they call it? Or is it Tuesday quarterbacking? I don't know when football is, but it's the day after when you're talking about everything that should have happened. It's like when you figure out the argument, how it should have gone when you're in the shower. You're like, oh, you know. They tie you up with heavy burdens, hard to bear, and they lay them on their shoulders of others, but they themselves are unwilling to lift a finger to move them. You know, Jesus called these guys brutes of vipers. They were like snakes. So when we sit back and we condemn people and we say how horrible they are and how horrible their thinking is and how horrible their politics are and all this, but we're not doing anything in our work to help those people be set free from that stuff, and to realize that they are victims of misinformation, as Dr. King would. When we don't do that stuff, we're just being judgmental bastards. We're doing what the church has done for thousands of years. You know, and we're just being judged. That's why the church isn't known for their love for one another. Because if the church was known for our love for one another, we would speak to each other. We would try to clear these things up. We would have really tough conversations. We wouldn't be sensitive. We wouldn't need freaking trigger warnings, because we'd have to be triggered all the time because of the conversations we were having in order to create a better world. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's like, how do we come together and have these conversations? You know, how do we practice true equality? You know, I mean, I will say it, I'm a liberal, I'm a lefty, I'm a snowflake, I get it. And people say, well, why do you give your party such shit, you know, all the time? Why do you give these people such shit all the time? Well, because it's a group I'm involved in and a group that I like and I love. And so because I care about them, you know, I'm going to talk shit about them because I think they got to get better. Or if the other side gets better first, then maybe we'll talk. But the point is, I don't want to be in this, you know, and this having to choose between two groups. I think we should have like 15 different parties like they do in like England and the UK and stuff. That would be cool. Rather than this dialectic, we'd have more dialectics in this world. Rather than binaries, so it's all this binary thing, and one's good and one's bad, and I'm like, no, they're both bad. They're both kind of bad. And I know why you want to defend them. I was the same way. Like, I remember 15 years ago getting mad at people who were voting for the Green Party because I said it was going to hurt the Democratic Party. And I was like, how dare you vote for it? Don't do it. I've been there and I've done it. So I know how you feel. So if you get upset at me and go, Jay, you're going to destroy the Democratic Party. I get what you're saying. I understand it. But when you get older, you just get tired and you think, God, we got to leave something better for the kids. It's all about the kids. So you see these Pharisees putting impossible standards on you, crushing, and nothing is. What is the Bible? What does it say at the end of Matthew? The greatest among you will be your servant. All who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted. But woe to you, scribes and you Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you lock people out of the kingdom of heaven, for you do not go in yourself, and others are going in, you stop them. Woe to you, scribes and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cross the sea and land to make a single convert, and you make that new convert twice as much a child of hell as yourself. Woe to you, blind guides. And I think we need to be awake to this. We need to feel this right now. We need to think about this, because I think you need to ask yourself, is this what I'm becoming? Is this what we've become? It's time for radical. The church is not known for people who love one another. The church has failed, pure and simple. We failed, and I'm watching it disappear all the time. I had one of the biggest mega pastors that I knew growing up recently tell me, Jay, you might want to get a location if and meet in person. He's like, that's great, but do not give up your online presence. He's like, because locations are disappearing everywhere. He's like, I don't think the church is going to even have buildings anymore because the church is dying. And we're going to be like voices crying in the wilderness. And this is a guy who I've seen speak to 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 people like that. I was so shocked that he was telling me this. I thought he was going to be like, go build a church, brother. And he's like, no, stay online. I'm like, oh, okay, with my 9 people, fantastic. Thanks for maybe he's just afraid if I get a church, I'll become a mega pastor. Woe to you, scribes and you Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you tithe mint, dill, and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters, the law, justice, and mercy, and faith. You ought to have practiced with neglecting the others. You blind guides, you strain out a gnat, but swallow the camel. The whole Matthew 23 is really Jesus really giving a hard time to the Pharisees. But I think it's a good time to ask ourselves, are we becoming Pharisees? Is this culture just set up with 2 different groups of Pharisees where we're just fighting people all the time? And we become so passionate about this stuff. But could you imagine if we were just as passionate about loving our enemies? Could you imagine if we were just as passionate about restoring people who are hurting? Could you imagine if we were just this passionate about giving food to hungry people? If we were this passionate about being a community in poor neighborhoods. Like, I'm in a poor neighborhood. You know what the cool thing about living in a poor neighborhood is one is that people often think that I'm here because I'm trying to show off. I'm not. I'm here because this is the only place I can afford to live in Washington. Is that, not too long ago I had a dead battery. My car battery died at where my analyst was. My psychiatrist is in a very nice neighborhood. And I could not get, I swear to you, I could not, it was like this good, what was this was sort of good Samaritan. I could get no one. No one. I had to go pick my kids up at school. And I literally could get no one to give me a charge. Like, to help me charge I had to call my ex-wife and be like, I can't, my car is dead. I can't pick up the kids. Could you help me with this? In my neighborhood, though, very diverse. I'm actually probably a minority in my neighborhood. I could get a jump in like 10 seconds. And it is nothing for me to walk up to a stranger's door and knock on the door and go, hey, my car's dead. Would you mind? My neighbors who don't speak very good English were like, oh yeah, no problem, and so I've never struggled with having an issue with helping my car when my tire was flat the other day, or oh, can I help them? No, I got it, thank you, because we all live in life and live in life on life's terms, and we forget those important moments of just being human to one another. Now, I bet if we started talking about politics, our politics would be a lot different. We would think differently. But when you're in that situation, it doesn't matter. We could probably argue about about politics, and it not cancel out the other. We wouldn't cancel each other out as neighbors or friends. There's a difference of when you're really going through suffering and things like that. I've learned a lot. Because as a kid, I was wealthy. My parents were wealthy and rich, so I've lived in all these different places. And none of us are trying to show off. We're just trying to help each other live and get to work on time, get the kids to school on time, It's funny how that works, right? We're going to look at Luke real quick, and then we'll shut this thing down, and maybe I'll tell you the point if someone was asking me, what's the overall message? The overall message really is we've got to change the church. The church has failed, and I'm talking to a small group of people saying, let's think about ways we can reform the church. Let's think about ways where we can help each other. Let's think about being willing to have tough conversations. Let's screw what the major culture thinks, or what social media thinks, or what the masses are telling us. Let's be real punk rockers and live a life that's different, a life that's true to ourselves, and a life that's true to our brothers and sisters. Let's actually love our enemies. Let's be known for the people as we look. And I can tell you, I've known a few pastors in this world who were that. Lawrence Richardson, who's in Minnesota, he's one who I think of who does that really well. There's a pastor who just passed away in North Carolina who I thought really did that really well. So there are people out there who do this stuff. It's not like we're completely screwed, but these aren't people who are mega pastors. These are just people living their lives, doing the best they can. But we should be known for that, But yeah, I'm thinking, and obviously you can't cover everything in one talk, but I do think that Reformation is the way we've got to go, and not in like a 500 years ago, where we're going to kill each other and things like that. But maybe we'll kill each other with really tough conversations and have to have hard conversations and change things, and realize that our politics can't separate us anymore, because there's just not enough of us to be able to have that freedom of political opinions to separate us, that we just have to learn to live with one another and bear one another, and maybe learn from one another, and realize that sometimes even contradictions can come together and butt up against each other. And as Hegel would say, sometimes those two contradictions can come and something happens above those two contradictions, and you get the truth, something that's greater than truth, or you go, and then philosophy comes in, and things really change. But yeah, for me, I'm like, I'm 46. This is my last stand. I want to see the church change. I want to see revolution. I want to see this congregation, this ministry, or whatever we want to call it. I've been calling it a gathering because I don't like the word church, but I would like it to see this group of revolution earn its name as really truly being revolutionary to human beings, to the individuals, to cause us to rise up in a way that isn't who's in and who's out. That's not angry and bitter. That's loving, caring, and compassionate, where grace is part of every footstep towards the future, where we're not sitting and canceling each other from one side or the other. We're not sitting there with judgment. We're not sitting there with anger and arrogance. We've all been hurt, but I think we can, if there's enough of us, we can say, hey, this issue hurt you, so we're going to send somebody else there. So, you deal with this guy's anger issues over here, because this guy was hurt by these people, so you go love them, and he'll go love your enemies, and then eventually we can maybe all come together and work out these issues, because if I go sometimes face to face with the person who's hurt me, a lot of bitterness comes out, a lot of hurt comes out, a lot of anger comes out, a lot of judgment comes out. and we see that. And then we wonder, like, well, why aren't people drawn to what I do? It's like, because people are afraid you're an asshole. People are afraid you're judgmental, but they don't realize that you're just really hurt by this group of people, that this group of has let you down. Anyhow, that's just a thought. Maybe Jay's wrong. It's, believe it or not, it has happened a time or two. Man, this caffeine really hit me. Okay, and this is how I'm going to end with, and I think this is important because this is what I was talking about and what I would put up yesterday or the day before on Instagram. Just I kind of wanted to see how people reacted. So it's Luke 18, 9. Jesus told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. So Jesus walks up, says, "Hey, I notice you really seem to really feel like you have your shit together. Have you seen some of these politicians, folks? They always remind me of administrators at my high school when I was a kid. Like they always thought that they were just like, we have it all together, and how dare you ask that question?" And then they say something that is so out there and so moronic and so weird, and you're just like, how are you a human being? And they're like, what do you mean? And so you got these people who really think they have their shit together. But you see it also on the left, too. You see these really woke people who are like, go ahead, question me. Go ahead, motherfucker, question me. Ask the wrong thing, and I will fucking stomp your ass out. Like, I'm afraid of conservatives. I'm afraid of liberal. I'm afraid. I saw somebody the other day. People are saying, like, why would you use the word woke in a negative way? I don't think it should be used in a negative way. But I also have to say, if you've been on the wrong end of someone who considers themselves woke and who's very angry, or they misunderstand you and they stomp you down, you will have a different feeling towards that. Okay? So sometimes woke people, guess what? They make mistakes. They can sometimes judge the wrong people. Sometimes they misread people, and they can be really vicious and angry and nasty. Okay? So let's just face that fact that we're all human beings. We all fall short, okay? We all make mistakes. And so when any of us, on any of that spectrum of politics or left, right wing shit, start to think that we have all the answers, well, we've really screwed up, because this is a very big, complicated world where, all philosophers, most brilliant philosophers and teachers will tell you is like really the key to enlightenment is realizing, or the key to knowledge is knowing that you don't really know much at all. That you're only seeing a corner or a small peephole of reality. And I'm talking about some of the greatest minds, like some of the greatest philosophers in the world. So Jesus is walking up to someone who's like, oh man, I've got all this shit together. I'm the man, I am the woman, I am the they, the them, I'm, whatever. And he goes, two men went up to the temple to pray. One a Pharisee. This is Jesus telling the story to this person who's got their shit together, thinks they got their shit together. To the Pharisee, and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying this: God, I thank you that I am not like other people, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. Now, if we jump back and we're talking about Levi, who became Matthew, the disciple, he was a tax collector. So this gives you an idea of how Pharisees felt about tax collectors. They saw them as thieves, adulterers, even like this tax. I fast twice a week. I give a tenth of all my income. But the tax collector there, standing far off, would not even look up to heaven, but was beating on his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his home justified rather than the other. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, but all who humble themselves will be exalted. And do you see what's happening here is, like, if you want to be a follower of Christianity, even as just an ideal of life, or if you subscribe to it as a faith, as I do, you're going to see something here is that it's about being humble. It's not about saying, I've got it figured out. It's not about going online and being the great judge, the great cyber judge of the world. It's about being humble. It's about learning about others. It's about talking to others. It's not about making up lies or making people look like shit because they don't believe what you believe. Because you know what? A lot of them don't believe what you believe because they've had different experiences growing up, because they were trained differently. They have different traumas than you have. They might even have traumas that relate to why they believe what they believe, as well as you may have traumas, because you know what? There's good and bad people in all different situations, you know? And so that's like, how do we come together and have these conversations? You know, how do we come together and be humble? That's what it's asking. You know, some people don't think like, well, I don't want to be triggered, but people sometimes don't realize that triggering is also being, allowing yourself to be triggered is also can be a humbling moment, and saying, I'm going to be humble enough to allow, even when I hear painful things, you know, like I'm not going to demand my own way in this one, like even though it hurts. And that's what the Bible says, love doesn't demand its own way. So yeah, Christianity does call you to something different. People want to think like, well, Christianity, you know, but we keep putting Christianity on the back burner a lot. All this stuff, even most of the pastors and teachers and stuff that I see today are all putting Christianity on the back burner. It's not really happening, the main thing. You know, they just use it as like, it's like a Facebook or like or an Instagram or something. It just uses a really good platform to express what you think. You know, well, Sunday is my way of expressing what I think. And Christianity is saying, humble, be loving, be compassionate, even to your enemies, and care for those people. You know, it's not about the win. It's not about owning the other person. You know, it's about being human. It's about being haphazardly human. It's about having grace for others. You know, it's about even praying for those people who might even be persecuting you. You don't have to go out there and hug them and say, oh, thank you for beating me. But it's even saying like, I'm going to have to give them to God and hope that somebody else is led to them to help free them from this. But this is Christianity. This is the taking up the cross. This is the dying to your flesh. It's not about politics. It's not about voting. It's not about rated R movies or secular music or all that shit I was taught growing up. You know, it's about love, and love is tough. And if God is love and we're experiencing love and we're finite and we want to experience the infinite, it's through love. But the problem is both groups, both sides, which we try to do this. I don't want to move in within either of these groups anymore, right or left. You know, like I'm putting the right and the left. You guys, guess what? You're both going on the back burner. You know, because that's not where my main focus is. My main focus is to get everybody together. And so you guys have to stay in the back burner because I can't, you know, my cause isn't for presidential candidates or for red or blue, you know. It's not for like political movements, you know. If I can find a way to help people through talking to politicians, I'll talk to any politician I think will help, you know, just like the civil rights leaders did. I would definitely use that as it, but I would also remind myself that that's not the end all. But I do believe that those are tools we have to use in order to help protect people who are less than. Anyhow, so that's the talk. That's the talk is I think we've lost as Christianity, and this is one step, one idea, one thought of taking Christianity into another step and realizing that we can't be Pharisees. We can't be conservative Pharisees. We can't be liberal Pharisees. We can't be woke Pharisees. We can't be Christian, what do they call them? Christian, there's some weird word that they, you know, the Christian, white Christian somethings. We can't be that either, you know, like those things are things, I mean, we can have things of those in our lives, but those can't be the things that we identify that drive us. What has to drive us is being humble, you know, being caring. White Christian supremacists or whatever, you know, it's like these aren't the things that move us forward. That's not grace, you know. That's not love. That's not never giving up, never losing faith, always being hopeful, enduring through every circumstance. And to be honest with you, I think if you're going to give up on Christianity, don't give up on Christianity because you're like, oh, it's a bunch of assholes doing this stuff, and it's really judgmental, you know. I would say if you really, I would feel more comfortable if somebody just came up to me and said, you know why I've given up on Christianity. I go, why? And they're like, because it requires loving people too much, it requires like caring about your enemies, and that makes no sense. And I can't do that, And then people get forgiven who don't deserve forgiveness. I don't like that. And that's why I've given up on Christianity. I would be like, fair enough. There's your reasons. Those are all solid reasons, because those are all solid things that are part of Christianity. But you also know you have grace, so it's going to be a little bit harder. But yeah, go, man. Give it up. Those are reasons to give it up. When people say they give it up, most of the times when people tell me why they hate Christianity, it's the reasons I hate Christianity as well, or why I hate bad theology, and why I hate bad scholarship. I'm like, well, you've got some really shitty scholarship, and if I thought that was Christianity, I wouldn't follow it either. So there's your challenge. Hope you can make sense of that. I didn't give you really a bow today, but I hope I gave you a lot to think about and a lot to process, and encouraging you to reform. Ask questions and be patient and loving with other people, but take this stuff and move forward. Yeah. Hatred is easy. You're right. Someone just popped up. Hatred is easy. Loving is hard. I think it was Jung who said most people judge because thinking is too difficult. So we usually like to judge people because really thinking is tiresome. It wears us out. So thanks, folks. I'm going to be working this week and on the documentary. So maybe we'll have a surprise guest for you next week. We'll see what happens. Thank you. Hopefully I do. I might be too sick to go tomorrow because right now I'm just on a caffeine high. Hey, one other thing. Revolution can use your support. If you go to revolutionchurch.com, you can donate there. That really helps. I mean, it really, really helps. We lost a very big donor a couple months ago, and it's really hurt us. But that's okay, because that's how the cookie crumbles. But I would appreciate it. Also, you say, well, Jay, I don't have money. I don't know how to do that. I can't help with money. How can I help otherwise? Ask people to subscribe to our YouTube channel right here. Ask them to subscribe and put on the notice. So when we turn on the camera, because I could turn on the camera at any time, you get a little ding, ding, Jay's here. Someone's here. and do that. Those are also ways you can help support Revolution, is by following us here on YouTube, subscribing to our channel, turning on the notifications, and then asking others to subscribe to the channel and turn on their notifications. That helps us a lot. You can retweet stuff. You can like tweets. I know it's really hard. I guess they don't give out as many hearts as they used to, but you can like our tweets when we tweet about talks. When I tweet about talks on my personal stuff, you can like that. Not even can you like it. That recycling button, it won't recycle it. It will just share it with other people. So you can share it with other people and let other people know what we're doing. That helps a lot and builds this community, builds this message, and gets it out there. And this message is bigger than all of us. So hopefully we can continue to work together. But I'm starting to have these highfalutin ideas of grandeur, of revolution and reformation, and something really cool happening. But we got to do this together. It's about us. It's not about individuals. We'll have individual moments and beautiful moments together, but we've got to think about all of us as a collective of how we can make this place better and make the world safer, and not let millionaires and government people make our lives and tell us what to do and tell us who to hate. Screw that. We're gonna figure out who to hate on our own. See you later.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. To make your 100% tax-deductible donation today, please visit revolutionchurch.com/donate. You can also learn more by clicking the donate section on the website.